Are you too late to Bitcoin at $100,000? So here's the perspective. You think you're too late to Bitcoin because Bitcoin hit 100K. I think I'm early to Bitcoin because Bitcoin got a $1.8 trillion market cap, right? So the market cap is $1.7, $1.8 trillion out of $900 trillion worth of wealth in the world. So that's like a very tiny speck. So I believe that I'm very early because we're 1.7 out of 900 trillion, right? So that's a fraction of 1%. So I think I'm really early. You're looking at the price and you're thinking that you're late. So to start this whole thing off, first things first is we need to talk about what is market cap, right? So market cap is how you compare the size of one company to the size of another company, right? So for example, Justin's lemonade stand, right? So he has 100 shares at $1,000 per share. 100 times 1,000 is 100,000. So his market cap is 100,000. Kim has a shoe company. She only has 50 shares available, but each share is $2,000 per share. She also has a market cap of $100,000, right? So if you're just looking at the share price, you're going to get confused. You're going to say, okay, well, one person has a $1,000 share and the other person has a $2,000 share, or units, tokens, whatever. We're talking about crypto. But you can't look at one and say, hey, the $2,000 per share company is bigger than the $1,000 per share company because 2,000 is a bigger number than 1,000. Doesn't work like that. How many shares are available? You multiply that. That's how you get your market cap. All right. So these companies are the same exact size, even though the share price is different. All right. So let's throw in another one. Chris's watch company. Right. So Chris has a watch company and his shares are $1. He has $1 per share and there's 100,000 shares out there. So you can't look at this company and say, well, the share is only $1, so it must be a cheaper company or a smaller company than Justin or Kim. That would be inaccurate. $1 times 100,000, $100,000. So all of these companies are the same exact size, although the share price is different. Okay, don't get confused by that. So if you're only looking at the price, right? Let's say you're only looking at the price of the share. You can't come in and say, hey, I missed the opportunity to invest in Kim's shoe company because it's $2,000 a share. Right? I might as well go to Chris's watch company. It's only $1 a share, right? So common sense will tell you they're the same size company. So you didn't miss something just looking at the price. So the price will mislead you if you're only looking at the price. The price doesn't present the full picture, and that's why we look at market cap, right? So if you're coming in looking at Bitcoin saying Bitcoin's $100,000 per Bitcoin, I missed it. And I'm looking at the market cap and I'm going, yo, there's $900 trillion worth of assets in this world and Bitcoin's only 1.8 out of 9 trillion. You're crazy. We're early. What happens when Bitcoin becomes 10% of all the assets? What happens when Bitcoin becomes 3% of all the assets in the world? Just 3%, right? Even 1% is still, far away from where we're at right now. So if you're only looking at the price per unit, you're going to think you're late. That makes sense? If you're looking at it with market cap and then you compare that to the market cap of all the assets in the world, right? In the entire world, not in America, not in California, not in Texas, not in Europe, but in the entire world. Remember, this is a global asset. So you compare the other assets in the entire world. All right. So moving on. So if you put $10,000 into any of these three companies, you own 10% of the companies, even though the amount of units that you have is completely different, right? So if you put $10,000 into Justin's company, you only have 10 shares. If you put $10,000 into Kim's company, you only have 5 shares. But if you put $10,000 into Chris's watch company, you have 10,000 shares, right? So another thing, the other unit bias that kills people in Bitcoin is they think, well, let me go buy this other crypto token because I want to have 10,000 of these units versus having half of a unit or versus having a point zero 0.01 of a unit, right? It doesn't matter. So in this case, if we're looking at it, like, like the stocks, then you saying, hey, well, I have 10,000 shares in Chris's company, so that's better than having 10 shares in Justin's company or 5 shares in Kim's company. They're all the same thing, right? You own 10% of a $100,000 company. You own 10%. So you can't look at the total amount of units and you can't look at the price, right? The market cap matters, right? So in conclusion, market cap matters. Market cap measures the size and the unit / share price. It doesn't mean anything by itself. You have to have the full picture. That makes sense to y'all? All right, smooth. All right, cool. Now, look at this. Look at this graphic. I got this from James Lavish, but this is where he sizes up the global assets, $900 trillion worth of assets in the world, and this is how they're split up. So that small little orange part is Bitcoin, 1.7 T, 1.7 trillion, right? Gold is 17 trillion. So we're 10% of what gold is at, right? So if you ask yourself logically, like, all right, do I think Bitcoin will catch gold? Yeah. All right. So if you think Bitcoin will catch gold's market cap, that gives us like $800,000 Bitcoin, right? If you think Bitcoin will get to at least half of gold's market cap, that gives us a $400,000 Bitcoin, right? So do we think that Bitcoin is more valuable than gold? Of course it is, right? So let's say you're just aiming, you're just getting in this trade, or you're just, sizing it up to, hey, I'm staying in Bitcoin until it catches gold. Or when it catches gold, it's $800,000 dollar coin, and we're only at $95,000 per coin right now. So you can, 8x your money. Put 10 grand in, walk away with 80,000. Put 100 grand in, walk away with 800,000. So are you late if we're only tracking down gold? You're still early, right? You're still very early in this, even if we're only looking at the gold part of the equation, right? Then we have art. A lot of people store money in art. So here's the problem. The problem is that there's all these different ways that we store our money, right? We store our wealth in all these different ways because the value of the dollar is falling. So when the value of the dollar is falling and falling and falling and falling, you can't keep that sitting in your account. So what you need to do is you need to go store some of that money in gold. You need to go store some of that money in art and collectibles. Some of that money needs to go into bonds. Some of that money needs to go into real estate. Half of that real estate being, your residential, your commercial, your personal property, equities, different companies around the world that you deem to be valuable. You need to store your money somewhere. So the entire problem, so we basically have a $900 trillion problem, right? Well, maybe half of this, right? Let's say we have a $350 trillion problem, saying that the purpose of half of all of this stuff is to simply store your money away. So if that's the case, if we have a $350 trillion problem and we have a $1.7 trillion solution, because Bitcoin is a solution for all these things. Why would I store my money in gold when I could store it in Bitcoin? Why would I go buy a painting when I can store it in Bitcoin? Why would I go invest in this company when I can store it in Bitcoin? Why would I buy bonds? Why would I go buy a rental property? Why would I go buy any of these things when I can store my money in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's going to outperform every single last one of these things? So even if we cut this global asset number in half to say, hey, there's a utility value for half of this stuff, right? So people need a house to live. Cool. So that cuts real estate in half. But the other half of real estate is people buying houses to rent them out because they can't keep their money in cash, right? The main reason why people buy art is to store their wealth. Right, the main reason why people speculate in the stock market and equities is to store their wealth, right? So, anyways, let's say we have a $1.7 trillion solution to a $350 trillion problem. Of course, you're still early, so you have to get the number of 100,000 per coin or 95,000 per coin out your mind and look at the bigger picture. Look at the market cap, because remember, the unit price or the share price does not tell the story by itself, right? So if the Wealth Squad was offering shares into our company, and we had 5 shares available we had 4 shares available for $250,000 a piece. You wouldn't say the Wealth Squad's bigger than Bitcoin, because the Wealth Squad has a $250,000 share and Bitcoin's only $100,000 per coin. You wouldn't say, well, Wealth Squad's too expensive, so I'm going to go look at Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin's a trillion times bigger than the Wealth Squad, right? So you can't just look at that unit price by itself. Does that make sense to you guys? Looking at this chart, then you'll start to see the bigger picture. We're just this small little line right here, Bitcoin 1.7 trillion. This small little line amongst, all these global assets. So you start to realize, we're actually early on this. All right, now think about this. There's risks that come with storing your money in real estate, right? So right now in LA, we have those fires going on. So think about, and it's unfortunately, some of my family is affected by that. I'm from California, right? But just think about, that's some people's wealth there that just burned to the ground. And then you got insurance companies that don't want to insure for fire. So it's not that you stored your money in real estate and that's the end of the transaction. You still got to go get insured, right? You still got to pay your insurance. And what if your insurance company drops you, right? State Farm started dropping people last year, or they'll say, hey, we're going to drop you, but we'll bring you back as long as you decline or that you accept or acknowledge the fact that we can't cover you for fires. So you have this thing, because real estate's an attack vector, right? So you have this thing where you're storing your wealth, this house, or maybe it's a rental property or whatever, but now you also need insurance on it. And you need insurance on it because of some jackass that could light a fire and just burn your wealth to the ground. And if you don't have the insurance, you just lost your money. You know what I'm saying? You lost the hard-earned money you just made. One person with a lighter and, some whatever they use can just burn that shit to the ground. Or the state of California can underfund the fire department, and now there's no water in the fire hydrant, and now they can't even prevent the fire from spreading. So you're leaving your hard-earned wealth left into a counterparty's hands, right? So the counterparty could be the state of California. The counterparty could be some jackass with a lighter. The counterparty could be anybody, right? But it could be the insurance company, right? They could say, hey, we ran the numbers. We don't want to insure anybody in this area, or we will insure you, but we're not going to cover fire. And then you're like, well, fire is kind of the main thing that can, smoke all my wealth. And then boom, look how it goes down, man. And it's very unfortunate. People are losing not only, their wealth that was stored in that house, but also all their memories. And, some people lost their lives. But just think about it, like it becomes an attack vector, because even if those houses were standing, if the government wanted more money out of you, they just increase the property taxes, right? They go, hey, all you guys living right here, you guys got these big ass houses. Let us get some of that, right? Makes sense? So they increase the property taxes. So, I'll tell you. So check this out. My grandpa, he grew up in Pasadena, California. He passed away 3 years ago. He bought a house in the 70s in Pasadena. He paid $16,000 for this house, right? The house is worth $1 million right now, right? So he paid $16,000 for it. The house is worth $1 million. The property taxes on the house is $12,000 a year, right? $12,000 a year. So imagine this. Imagine all these years ago when you buy this house. Let's say you cash out for it. You save up your hard-earned money. You pay $16,000. Hey, I want this house right here. Boom. Now, you think you could just go on about your life and, hey, I don't need to earn as much money. I've solved one of my major problems in life. Can you imagine fast forward later on in your life when you're an older person and you don't, you should be retired. You shouldn't have to go work anymore. Like, you put your time in. But imagine what you paid for a house is now you got to basically buy the house every other year. $12,000 this year, $12,000 next year. Boom, you just bought the house again. $12,000 this year, $12,000 next year. Boom, you bought the house again. But mind you, this only works when you assess the value of the property up, right? Because it plays a trick on all the homeowners. Because if you buy the house for $16,000, let's say it just stays at $16,000, right? Because when the house was $16,000 or the house was $1 million, it does the same exact thing. It's the same exact house, right? So let's say that the home value never gets assessed up. So you buy this house for 16,000, it stays at 16,000, right? The insurance company is not going to come around and say, hey, you actually owe us more for the insurance. Because imagine when you buy a $16,000 house, your insurance for the year is probably $200-$300. So it's always going to be $200-$300 because they're not insuring a higher value home. It's still 16,000, right? Your property taxes, let's say that comes out to $500 a year. So you know from the housing perspective that you just need to cover $800 a year, hypothetically. You need to cover $800 a year. That's it, right? So whatever you earn for the entire year, you just need to pay $800 to keep your cost of living covered, right? Cool beans, you know? So the people on fixed income, they could do things like that, right? But think about how this kind of creates like a non-productive member of society. You're not getting out and working and spending more money and blah blah blah, right? So the way that everything keeps getting assessed up, it keeps you in the game, because you can't sit back and just, hey, I solved my problems, now I'm just gonna make enough money to pay for my food. But that's how life should work. You solve one of your problems, especially a problem that you can solve permanently, then you work on the next problem, then you work on the next problem. And then when you pass away, your children get that house, and now, boom, their cost of living is just cut drastically, right? So ideally, that's how it would work, is that the house would stay the same value, right? But think about how they could squeeze more out of you if they assess the value up, and you think, well, at least the cost of living is going up, but at least the value of my home is going up. But then that insurance that used to be $200 for the year is now $2,000 for the year, then $3,000 for the year, then $4,000 for the year, then $5,000. How much does it cost to insure $1 million property? Probably $5,000 in a year at the minimum in California. So if you take the $12,000 for property taxes and you take $5,000 for the insurance, you're looking at $17,000. You bought the house for $16,000. That's like you buying the same house over and over and over and over and over again. Imagine buying the same, like you're paying what you paid for this house, you're paying to maintain the house every single year, because they played the trick on you to assess the value of things up, right? And of course they assess the value of the things up because they keep putting more of these units, money, into the system. It's a crazy game that we play. Right. And the more you think about it and the more you comprehend it, the more you're like, yo, this is insane, bro. This is crazy. Right. All right. So boom, here we got the global M2 money supply. Right. So in the year 2000, it was around 30 trillion. The year 2023, it was around 140 trillion. Right. So you look at the CAGR, right? The compounded annual growth rate. How much is it growing per year, right? So the M2 money supply, the global M2 money supply is growing at around 7% per year. It's compounding 7% per year, 7% per year. Remember in my other videos and stuff, I tell you guys that the only reason why these things are going up is because they're being inflated up. Real estate's being inflated up. The stock market is being inflated up, right? The more units they put into circulation, then the more your house seems like it's worth, right? So let's say this microphone. So I get this microphone for whatever. I make a microphone, and then you want to buy it. So you come in to my office and you're like, hey, I want this microphone. And you bring me whatever, a stone. And I say, okay, these stones are kind of hard to find. Like I know that he had to go looking around, searching hard to get that stone, or he had to trade his time to get that stone. So we'll trade one stone for this microphone. Then before we sign the deal, somebody else just keeps bringing some stones in the office. And I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, the stones are kind of hard to get, but now there's more of them, right? Now that there's more of the stones in the house. So I see that they're not as hard to get as I thought. So actually, I'm going to need 3 stones. And then before we sign the deal, more people keep bringing the stones in. And I'm like, hey, bro, the stones are not as rare as I thought. There's more of them out there. I'm going to need 7 stones for this microphone. Now, that makes perfect sense. But when you look at it on paper, it looks like the value of this microphone is going up. So if you're an investor investing into my company and I'm selling these microphones, you go, look, the microphone, the value of the microphone is going up. It used to cost 1 stone. Now it costs 7 stone. That's how we look at the stock market. The S&P 500 used to cost this amount. Now it costs this amount. This house used to cost this amount, but now it costs this amount. But think about the microphone situation. Is the microphone becoming more valuable, or is the value of the stones falling? Makes sense. This microphone has not changed at all. I just noticed there's way more stones in this room, so I'm going to need more from you. So if you're looking at it from the piece of paper, the piece of paper thing, the number on the paper, right? The nominal value, the number, it's like, yo, this thing used to be worth 1 stone and now it's worth 7. That microphone is dope. It's going up in value. That's how we look at things. But we should look at things as, yo, these stones are losing their value because they're not as scarce as we once thought, or they're not as scarce as they used to be. The value of the microphone is not going up. The value of the stones is falling. The value of my grandpa's house didn't change. The utility value did not change. It's the dollar that changed. All right. So with that being said, think about all the money that's in the world, global into money supply. So in the year 2000, it's $30 trillion. The year 2023, so 23 years later, it's 140 trillion. So we're multiplying at 7% per year, right? So you would think, okay, if what I just said about this microphone is true, then the rate that they keep bringing the stones in is the inflation rate, right? So we're going to see if, you keep making more money and putting more money into the ecosystem. Does the value of real estate match that? Does the value of the stock market match that? So that's my whole theory. So boom, let's go look at real estate, right? So we say the compounded annual growth rate, the CAGR on the money supply is 7%. So now we go look at real estate. So the U.S. median home price. So in 2000, it was 134. 23 years later, it's 400K, right? Did the houses get any better? Do they do something that they didn't used to do? Do they I don't know, does it heat up anymore that it used to 23 years ago? It doesn't do anything different. It still provides the same exact utility. It's just that there's more units of money in the ecosystem. It's just matching the monetary supply, right? So the more we put units in, the more it looks like this microphone is going up, but the microphone ain't going up. The value of the stones are going down. Okay, let's look at the S&P 500. All right, so the year 2000, S&P 500 closed at 1,300. 2023, it closed at 4,500. 2024, I don't know why ChatGPT didn't have this, but I think it closed at like 6,000. Right? You go look at the CAGR, it's like 6%, 7%, 8%. Either way, it matches the growth of the monetary supply. So imagine this. Imagine if the monetary supply is growing at 7% and they're telling you that inflation is 3%. You think you're up, right? Because the S&P, let's say S&P is 7%, monetary supply is 7%, but they're telling you that inflation is 3%. Well, then you say, okay, I got a 4% spread. So I'm protecting myself against inflation, right? So my wealth went up this much, inflation came up this much. The spread is me building actual wealth, not just nominal value. My number is going up. The spread is me building actual wealth, right? So that's the whole name of this whole facade, is that you have to believe that you're getting wealthier, but you're not. You're just staying flat, right? So the S&P 500 is the inflation rate, right? The S&P 500 is the inflation rate. So if you want to protect yourself against inflation, you need to match the S&P 500 exactly. If you fall below the S&P 500, you got slightly poorer. If you beat the S&P 500, you got wealthier. If you match it, you stay the same. All right. So all these asset classes are just keeping up with inflation. That's why the number on your account goes up, but you can't buy more stuff. That's why the value of your house is up, but you can't go buy more stuff. Right? So on paper, the nominal value is going up, but the actual how much, because what you want is purchasing power, right? You want more purchasing power. So for instance, if you go buy a home for $500,000 and years later it's worth $1 million, you would want to be able to go sell out of that home, buy a similar home, and use the money to buy more stuff, right? But you can't. If you sell out of that home, you're going to be buying a similar home for the same exact cost. So if your home goes up from 500,000 to $1 million, and then you try to go buy a similar home and it's also $1 million, you didn't get any more purchasing power, right? Your home went up, but so did everything else. So you can't buy more stuff. You don't want more money. You want more purchasing power. And until we get that through our heads, we're going to struggle, because what they're going to do is they're just going to mark the value of things up, but it doesn't give you any more purchasing power, right? So think about this. In 1970, there was 180,000 millionaires in America, about 180,000. Now there's like 40 million millionaires. Where's all the money at? Most of the people are hurting. Most of wealthy people have more money, but where's the money at? But then if you adjust it, what was $1 million in 1970 today? It's $8 million. So then if you were to say, okay, if someone doesn't have $8 million, at least I wouldn't consider them a millionaire. It's probably the same ratio, right? So you say, okay, anything less than, or even think about when you were a kid, what did you think $1 million house would look like? That's probably what an $8 million house looks like right now, right? So they just assess everyone real estate up. The returns in the stock market meets the monetary supply expanding. Everyone thinks they're getting wealthier, but you can't go buy more stuff. That's the name of the game. You want to be able to buy more stuff, right? So I say all that to say this. People are going to realize this, because people are going to say, I'm getting rental properties, but they're only keeping up with the inflation rate. And I have to deal with insurance, and I have to deal with maintenance, and I have to deal with property managers, and I have to deal with property taxes. Or you go, okay, I'm going to put my money in the S&P 500. The problem is majority of the returns in the S&P 500 are coming from the same 7 to 10 stocks. Everything else is holding the S&P 500 down, right? So you need to go look into the market and say, hey, what can I actually invest in that's going to beat the S&P 500, right? And it's going to be one of, your Microsofts, your Nvidias, your Teslas, your Apples. It's going to be something like that, right? Which is going to require you to do research, which is require you to buy in at the right time. Now, mind you, your returns on any of these assets or any of these returns that I posted could be a lot better depending on your entry, right? But then that starts turning you into an investor. But why do you have to do all this when your money should just stop falling in value? You should just be able to buy something, and that's the end of that. So next, on the Federal Reserve's website, the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, the St. Louis chapter, they have a chart here that shows the purchasing power of your dollar. And it shows also a contrast that with the Bitcoin price. So the Bitcoin price is here in orange, going up and up and up. And you notice that the value of the dollar is falling, right? So I put $1 here, right? On the top of the dollar, it says what? The Federal Reserve note. All right. The Federal Reserve are the people that create the money, right? That's the central bank that's in charge of the United States government's money, right? The Federal Reserve, the people who create the money, are showing you what's happening to your purchasing power on their website. This ain't some conspiracy theory. This is secret knowledge they don't want you to know. Yeah, they don't want you to know this. Bro, they put this shit right here on their website. You're just choosing not to go look at it. Or you're choosing like, hey, they put it out there. It's not like this ain't in some secret library in Egypt. Bro, it's on their website. They're telling you what's happening right here to your purchasing power. They're saying, yo, your purchasing power, your dollar is falling like crazy. Oh, well, what you going to do about it? Watch the Super Bowl? Watch college football playoffs? March Madness? What are you gonna? Netflix just dropped some new shows, bro. Y'all do not care, right? They putting the info right there, and they're telling you like, yo, this is what's up with us. We're sinking the value of your money. What you gonna do about it? Nothing. Exactly. Shut up. That's what y'all gonna do about it. I'm gonna go put my money in Bitcoin because it ain't something they can make more of. You know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say this. The same way I caught on, other people are going to catch on. They're going to realize you can beat the returns of the market without the headache. You buy Bitcoin and you do nothing else. The only thing you need to do is ride the volatility of the market. Pause. Right? No Diddy. Just ride the volatility of the market, right? Because volatility and risk are two different things, right? So Bitcoin goes up and down, up and down. Cool. I'm not doing nothing other than buying more of it. Right? So all you got to do is buy it and don't sell it. If it goes down, buy more. Because the name of the game is you have to look at it one or two ways. Are you trying to use Bitcoin to get more dollars? Or are you trying to use dollars to get more Bitcoin? If you're trying to use dollars to get more Bitcoin, then when the price of Bitcoin goes down, you should be excited. Right? It used to cost you $100,000 for one unit. Bitcoin falls to 50K. Now it costs you $50,000 for it. You can buy more Bitcoin with the same amount of dollars. So if you fully understand this Bitcoin thing, you know you want to use more. You want to use dollars to get more Bitcoin. Now, if you only want to use Bitcoin to get more dollars, so you're going to take your dollars, put it in Bitcoin, and then put it back into dollars. Then when the value of the dollar of Bitcoin goes down a little bit, you panic because you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be getting more dollars, not less. I'm going to panic and I'm going to sell. Now you just took a loss. All you have to do is manage the volatility and you good in the Bitcoin world. But when you fully understand this thing, when you thoroughly understand this thing, you're using dollars to get more Bitcoin. So if the value of Bitcoin goes down in dollar terms, you should be excited, right? So I said today on Twitter that my price target for Bitcoin for this year is 400,000, right? And the more I think about it, I say that's the worst case scenario, right? That's kind of the worst case. The worst case scenario is that Bitcoin goes up, it doubles or triples or quadruples this year. That's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is it falls in half. If it goes to 50K, that's good because we can buy more. Like what? We got a little bit more time to buy more before this thing explodes. I'll take another year. I'll take another 4 or 5 years of this being down so I can buy as much as possible. The key to wealth is giving the world what they want before they know they want it. Before you know it, the entire world's going to want some Bitcoin because they're going to be tired of their money being melted away. So they're going to say, yeah, I'm going to put some money in Bitcoin. That means they need to buy it off of one of us. I might sell you a little bit, but it's going to cost you 10 million. Right? So worst case scenario is Bitcoin takes off this year and goes up fast. And you can't even buy enough to change your family's life because you're like, oh, I was scared of it going down. Worst case scenario is it 4X's from here. Best case scenario, it falls and gives you another year, 24 months to keep stacking. You're only going to see it this way if you understand you want to use dollars to get more Bitcoin. All right, y'all. All my education, all that good stuff is in the Wealth Squad. I'm Wealth Squad Chris. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Hope y'all learned something. I hope y'all see the bigger picture that I believe that I'm very early to Bitcoin. You might think you're late because you're only looking at the dollar price. You're not looking at the market cap. You're not looking at the bigger picture. You're not realizing these people, these players that are here with their money tied in all these other assets will come to Bitcoin. I promise you. All right. Wealth Squad Chris, I'm out.